Hi, Rosemary.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Hope all is well.
How you doing, Harriet?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there.
That's all we can ask. Looks like I'm in the dark, but I'm not.
Let me know if you have any, if you have a hard time hearing me. I got my mask on because I'm at work.
I can.
Patrick. You sound fine.
Oh, I was gonna ask, can I screen share, Karen?
Yeah, let me let you do that. Hold on. Try now, Patrick.
Yep. Thank you. Right. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Yes.
nice. All righty. So, Aaron provided us with this little template here for us to kind of talk about our key recommendations to start with. And I know we have a lot. We have a lot on our plate. And we're still kind of getting some information either from the police department or from some other, community advocates and people that we've been working with. So I started doing some input here of a couple of the big topics, and we can enter in some, like I have your email, Harriet, that had some recommendations as well. So I have my first topic up here is addressing racism in the police department trainings as one of our top issues.
Yeah.
So, we have White Plains PD's current curriculum for bias training is the fair and impartial policing that was actually provided to them by Camden County Police Department. So they were trained as trainers to have that training. Now, it has some good aspects to it, but we're going to be recommending that the police department examines doing something a layer deeper that actually goes more into history and addresses these key principles of undoing racism, or a lot of people understand it as anti-racist training. So a combination of just having that specific focus on racism and the history will be really important. And then these principles are really important as well. So I included a link here to People's Institute of Survival and Beyond.
Quick question, Patrick. We don't want to do like an equity committee or anything like that?
Did you say equity committee?
Yeah.
So yes, 100%. I think an equity committee or something like that would go under, like, our focus is training. So
okay, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Could I jump in for a second, Patrick? So I'm on the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity Advisory Committee up here in Bedford, and one of the things we're meeting tonight, and one of the things I know that we have to do as a committee is drill down a little bit on our common language and a common understanding. So I'm glad that you put PSAB up here. And to your point, Rosemary, I think it's a great idea to have like an equity committee. But I also think if you have the equity committee, that they also need to have some kind of idea, like a common language for racism, a common language for the principles.
Yeah, I think,
I would
yeah.
keep, sorry, I would, Patrick, I would, so I'm a trainer with the Institute, so I'm just gonna say from this, I wanna give you, I'm gonna email you and I'll CC everyone on the committee, a little blurb to explain what the workshop is, just to help you flesh out this language here in the description.
Good.
All right, Patrick, you're 100% right. You're 100% right, Patrick.
Okay. Yeah. So and the I love that. Yeah, I was just gonna second like what Kim said. Like once you have some leadership, some key leadership people trained in the same curriculum that
Yeah.
all the officers will get, then they're gonna be all on the same page, right?
Right.
You're 100%, both of you.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of us are on the same page with that. Now,
Cool.
I'll put for time and occurrence to be determined, because I think maybe something, Kim, that we could find out is a recommendation from PISAB to like if they have something in mind already for police departments.
So we actually, so you can say PSAB, that's what we say. We just say
Yeah,
PSAB.
right.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. It's okay. Common language, right?
Yep.
We actually have been working with law enforcement. There are some local law enforcement who have attended the workshops, and I know in Stamford a few years ago, they took the entire Stamford City administration, you know, all the chiefs and the heads went through the workshop. So yeah, we have worked with law enforcement.
Okay.
And we can, so when we bring in a trainer, we try to bring in a trainer who has a connection to the particular collective. So we could find, I'm almost sure that we could find some police officers or some folks who work with law enforcement to train, and yeah, we can, but yeah, we can work all that out. And I can send you the contacts for the PSAB also.
Okay. So any other questions or thoughts on, like, you know, bias or anti-racist, undoing racism training?
Nope.
Okay. I know time
Oh,
and
sorry, Patrick. Could you plug in some of the governor's language from the executive order into some of this?
yes, definitely I can. I
Okay.
didn't start with that. I was kind of drawing from some of our notes and from some of everybody's individual input. But yeah, I could definitely in the maybe that's where we can, you know, finalize our recommendation will go here, but we could
Yeah.
also like per Governor Cuomo's EO 203, right?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. So I'll make sure I do that in the comment section. It'll really stand out too. Like, you know, we're not just coming up with this. Actually, racism and, you know, addressing this is one of the top things he calls for. So I think we're pretty good on that. We can iron out some time and occurrence, you know, to be determined. We can see what they did out in Connecticut would be great. Because if they did it, then it's like, okay, if an existing police department did it, they found a time and a space to do it. So we do.
Yep.
You know how it worked? How well, I mean,
It's not that kind of a workshop. I mean, there's no, the workshop is really about understanding history, adopting principles, and then learning how to incorporate that into your work. So there's no way to know, because it's not like you go to school and take a test and you get a grade and then you know how well you did in that class. It doesn't work that way.
did they see any change in behavior? But that would be, you know, that's a hard thing to tell. And certainly we take time.
Yeah.
So next we had addressing trauma. So I know the big topic all of us. I tried to make sure that I split it into two specific categories under this one umbrella. One being trauma regarding civilians' trauma, and the other being officers' trauma.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So, as we said, there's kind of a common theme. Now, we had discovered that WJCS had provided the last training, but that was like 3+ years ago. That it's not really an ongoing thing. They do talk about trauma in a lot of their other trainings, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they focus so much on it. So our recommendation is that trauma training would be trauma responsive / trauma informed training regarding interactions with civilians. And we recommend that this training is provided by a mental health professional / agency like WJCS.
That's great. That's great.
That is perfect.
Wonderful.
And then regarding officers' trauma. So what we discovered, we have something called Westchester Blue. Now, this is mental health support for officers with vicarious trauma. But what training do they do? What do they offer? If so, who facilitates it, and what is their credentials? So I can try to iron that out, but I don't think they really do training. I think they just offer support if you're like going through substance abuse issues and you're like, hey, I could really use some extra support, and they can connect you to another agency or a therapist or someone to help you with that. But what we want to see is that there's training around trauma and the mental health of officers themselves, because officers have to manage their own personal mental health. They have to cope with day-to-day trauma and vicarious trauma, which is the trauma that they experience on the job or in their regular life too. But like vicarious trauma, they would experience like if they were in a really intense, situation, crisis situation at work, and that was a traumatic incident for them.
Like what Brian shared with us the last time we met.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure many officers have their own experiences that they could all share upon, and we know that it's a part of their culture, right? So,
Yeah.
So we want to say how would we say that? To change the culture, really.
Or provide a culture of something.
Yeah. Promote, provide.
Yeah, promote is good. I like it.
Oh, it is good.
Where what he talks about. Cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest things. It's hard to give a recommendation without really, we need to say stuff like that, like, changing the culture, promoting a culture where, and ongoing 2 times a year, not only, like, I imagine something that it would be, again, someone like WJCS maybe coming in and facilitating it, but where you talk about what to do when, like, holding it in, you're finding someone to talk to immediately, you're communicating with your supervisors, you're taking a mental health day when you need one, you're taking time off, paid time off, or unpaid time off when you need it because you're feeling like you're not okay to work, things like that. So
Yeah. Without fear of judgment or something, do we need anything like that without?
yes, without like being penalized or being
Judged.
yes, yeah. That's
A
a
lot
really
of wives have told me of police officers, they feel very judged. They feel they need to be pushed into, or her husband did, after he was at work during 9/11. And, he wouldn't have gotten help if they didn't make him, really. But we're not making them, but making it not seem on police officer or on that, whatever they feel, that it doesn't, that they're supposed to suck it up somehow.
That also, so I know that there are women on the force, but men are also, and I know you're here, Patrick, and I'm speaking very generally, Men are not socialized to discuss mental health issues, to discuss emotional pain. So you're looking at a couple of different layers here. And the women who come onto the force, I think, are adopting a culture of kind of pushing that to the side. But I would say that because the majority of the force is male identified, you're looking also at how men are socialized outside of the police force, and then how being on the police force adds another layer to that. And now thinking about that out loud, Patrick, I wonder if a group like I don't know if this is their work, but I'm thinking of like a call to men, but that might not work because they're looking,
Is that a restorative justice program?
No, a call to men was founded by Ted Bunch and Tony Porter, and they do a lot of work around male socialization and healthy relationships. But I want to go to their website because I know them from the perspective of working with them through my sister's place, but they do other work around male socialization. So there might be something there to add to this idea of promoting a different culture.
Yeah. Culture is a really strong word, and that's going to be the key to almost everything.
I agree.
That's what we're trying to change.
Yep. And it's hard to change culture.
Very hard. That's what's been sort of weighing on me.
But we have to do it. Now is the time.
It's our shot. You know?
Yeah, I like that. Maybe in a couple of our different subtopics, we can always make sure we include promote a culture of XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that this stems off a little bit, but I just want to make sure I leave it up here because it's a little bit of a qualifications thing. And I'm sure Wade and his team is addressing this, but mandating mental health support and mental health screening would be part of the potential PD licensure for Westchester County. So that's,
like that.
You know, it's out of our jurisdiction, I would say, as a subcommittee, but not necessarily something that we can't say like, you know, this really would have to be a part of that new culture to address trauma and mental health with the officers specifically. If they're held accountable, if it's part of the qualification, then it's going to be a part of the ongoing training and everything else. So when it comes to like occurrence and time, like, you know, I put ongoing 2 times yearly, and I know that that's a tall ask, it's a tall recommendation, but I know in certain settings, like for example, in like youth residential settings, if it's a good agency that's really abiding by really strong policies and procedures, a lot of times what they do is enforce every 6 months that they go for these re-up in trainings. That's 2 times yearly that they're getting a re-up in their mental health training, trauma training, even their physical interventions like TCI and stuff like that. So I kind of went with that because I feel like it's something that they would need. I don't know, they're gonna probably be a lot of pushback based on time and availability and stuff like that for officers to do it 2 times yearly, but I think we should go higher with our ask, and then if need be, we adjust and work with them to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I say make it, you know, if we could do it quarterly. I don't even think that's too tall of an ask.
When I've done their in-service takes 16 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what blowback.
And it's like a week-long session. So, and that's where they get the implicit bias training. So the police department is pretty large. And so I'm pretty sure 12 to 16 weeks is how long it takes for them to train everyone in the department when they do their, I guess it's an annual training. So quarterly might not be feasible.
Yeah.
I understand that now.
Well, if we got them trained, there might be ways of refreshing the training, you know, that became less arduous. And then the people who are new would have to get it, of course, but I don't know.
Do we think twice yearly is too much? Because that to me is the bare minimum.
I think that's a perfect frequency.
Yeah.
So I guess the next one that I had up was addressing mental health and disabilities. So when I did my visit to the department, I got a lot of information about how it's kind of intertwined into a lot of different trainings. One of them being like even their medical trainings addresses things like mental health. Emergency Services Unit, the ESU unit is it takes a lot of time to go over topics that include mental health. And
they get a lot in the academy too,
Yeah,
but
that presentation was good.
you know, it's just do they get the right, I guess, focus?
yeah, so I don't know if our recommendation, because I think Harriet brought up a really good point, and it's a way that a lot of us are transforming how we bring a realness to doing trainings too, is having there be like peer and youth involvement, so people with lived experience. So it's one thing for someone to go in and do a training, a social worker or whoever to go in and do a training on, you know, how to interact with a person with mental health or a disability. And it's a little bit different for that to be done with maybe a combination too, even of a professional and someone with lived experience. Because then you're really hearing from someone how that feels, going through the day-to-day life with facing things like stigma and everything else. So I kind of want to include that somewhere in the recommendation. I was just trying to think if we have a peer-led, peer-driven type format or curriculum.
You know, where not, I mean, you would have peers who can train, but you might have also people who wouldn't be qualified to well, like someone with a developmental disability wouldn't be able to train, but it'd be good for them to see somebody like that so they recognize it. I think sometimes they don't recognize this and they think this person's just difficult, and right. Things escalate, and that's where things get really bad and violent, or just harassing and traumatizing, and just repeated stopping and just not recognizing.
Is this something like a mentorship, Patrick, you're saying, or maybe not? Maybe just a peer-led and not so much a one-to-one mentorship, right?
Yeah, more like a peer-led.
Okay, all right. And I was trying to pull up the presentation. Okay, peer-led curriculum. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure if we know of a curriculum.
I don't either. I mean, you know, when I was talking to the Board of Mental Health, who does train, problem is we had him to one of our disability meetings, but you know, his audio was so bad and he had so much information. He does train police. I mean, he trains police here and at the Westchester Academy, and part of a huge initiative. He does seem like he may have been a little bit acculturated into the police culture because he's been doing it so long, which is a little bit of a concern. And because we want them interacting with people in the community who aren't part of their culture, to break it, you know, so that, because police have these problems too. They have them in their family, they have, you know, maybe relatives, they might be bipolar, they might have these problems and these traumas too. So that can count technically as peers, or the mental health trainer does. But in a way, it's not breaking the culture, and we sort of want them interacting kind of with people who are like the people they're interacting, and not, you know, have a different attitude maybe towards it than the police do. I don't know. I don't know of a program though. I mean, there are resources at the Westchester Independent Living Center, you know, that could be used, and maybe Westchester Disabled on the Move. might know. But also the Board of Mental Health, they have been very, very active in police reform, restorative justice at all levels. It sounded like from, through jail to coming out of jail and training, but it's just hard to evaluate the courses, but.
Yeah. So, and like, I feel like it was just kind of included in when I got my summary too from Chief Castelli that, there's this section where they tell me that they do 418 hours, right, of this training that includes things like community policing, implicit bias, LGBTQ, and disabled person. That's all it says. Like, what's the extent of training that they go into when working with disabled people and the approach used? So not only, like, we're saying that trauma is important, that's going to include a lot of like what we're talking about, right, when it comes to people with mental health and disabilities even too, but like
You too.
yeah, just some general like background information. Like you get some of that in medical training, but you really don't get much about the breakdown of diagnoses like depression, anxiety, and major ones that if you have a little bit more of that background, then you really like you can kind of be prepared. I feel like you could be better prepared to work with a lot of these different groups of people.
If you recognize what it is, like this person's having a schizophrenic episode or a bipolar manic episode, and that they're irrational, though that they might seem just sort of, exuberant, but you realize that they're not really fully grounded in reality. That's helpful to know, to recognize, and that might not be covered in other aspects of mental health training, where trauma would cover a lot because most people with mental health have trauma, but there are aspects of things like autism, people like that, they have frequent interactions that are very difficult with the police.
Yeah, and so Rosemarie, to use your term, promote a culture, I would say we want to promote a culture that reduces stigma and provides a more holistic and nurturing approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nurturing. Yes. Yes.
Right.
That's the key word. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good word.
That is perfect.
Probably not a word they use much.
Right, but they have to learn. That's a powerful word.
Yeah. When you're protecting someone, the main thing you're really doing is nurturing them.
Yeah.
They're guardians, not kind of, controllers or, enforcers.
Love that.
So this is going to sound way off the rails, but there actually is a Buddhist priest, I guess is the terminology, who was a former police officer. And I'm going to email you guys her information, because I'm just thinking about when you're thinking of the word holistic, thinking a little more outside of the box, which I think will work here. Let me just, you guys keep talking. I'm going to go look.
I think they're working with one because the guy from the Board of Mental Health mentioned that.
Well, working with one, like they have one on the side that people can call anytime, or are they working with someone who comes in who has a program running for the police department? That's different. I want to go find this person's name, because I think what they did, I think the police department was in Wisconsin or Minneapolis or somewhere, but I think some of the work that they did was effective. It took years though, that's the thing. It's not a quick fix. All right, I'm gonna go look that up, and I'll put it in the chat when I find it.
Okay.
But thinking about those kinds of modalities, and I should say that one of the things that we're doing at my sister's place is we have an MOU with the DCMH, and so we actually we have Jenna Velez who's coming in, and she's doing a she's doing 3 sessions on trauma-informed care considerations during COVID-19. And then we're working on bringing someone in who, we're actually hiring this person as a consultant. So she's a Black psychologist, and since most of our staff are Black and of color, this is really good because she's coming in with an anti-racist perspective.
Mhm.
as our kind of our mental health associate, which is not, hasn't been finalized yet. So I'm just sharing it with this group. But I think if we can think of, when we're thinking of mental health, think of like a couple of different recommendations, because what we're seeing is that, you know, there are people at work who gravitate towards therapy. There are people at work who gravitate towards yoga. There are people at work, so everyone gravitates to a different modality. And I'm wondering now, Patrick, if it's not too late for us to add in the comments or the recommendations a couple of different modalities for people to consider.
Yeah, it's not too late at all. We could add
Okay.
modality curriculums. For right now, I just put, when it comes to who could maybe facilitate these trainings, we would say an agency like Family Ties, DCMA, My Sister's Place.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah, that'll do it.
Always also, we should be tying this to race, I think, bias, because I think that's where you're seeing the worst problems.
Yeah. I could put the loft here too, because I feel like,
Yes, yes, yes.
you know, they say that they include this in community policing, but this got to be, you know, I hate squeezing such a big topic into something else, but, you know, the LGBT community, we have to make sure that we're transforming that culture too. With like, it's about stigma, less stigma, more nurturing, right? So we can't.
So much trauma too. I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's
that,
definitely trauma. Definitely under trauma. I could add to add
what
little.
about immigrants, particularly maybe illegal?
Yeah.
I mean, they have special issues relating to the police, but.
Would you say we add this in that? Like, that's really hard. Add it.
I think so that's the kind of thing that falls under the systemic racism piece with PSAB. Because one of the things we talk about in the workshop is anti-Blackness, and anti-Blackness being the root of oppression and systemic racism that impacts other Black and brown, other brown communities. So yeah, the xenophobia that we see is actually rooted in anti-Blackness, and there's a way to unpack that, I think, in all of them. But I think I'm just thinking in terms of the work that we do with PSAB, that's an issue that is born out of systemic racism.
Undocumented has some difficult legal issues in relating to the police. I mean, they won't, you know, fear of talking to them, things
Yeah,
they legally, like drive, like many have, you know, are driving without license because they can't get a license. You know, they have their wrinkles on it if they're undocumented as opposed to documented,
but it's not the undocumented Polish immigrants or the undocumented Russian immigrants. It's the undocumented Black and brown immigrants who have the biggest issues with law enforcement because they're more visible.
Right, and then there's a history, you know, then we have to look at how history plays into a fear that puts everything on edge right away too. Well, I think we did have something in this about history that that's addressed, but history plays a very strong role, I do feel.
And that's exactly what the governor mentions in his executive order.
Yeah, yep. We have to tear that down, you know, and really stand on a culture that, you know, we won't repeat that history, or that history will not be repeated. We have to learn from our history.
So we did learn a little bit about community policing within the White Plains Police Department, and it's nice to hear that we have some stuff going on, but it's not how every police officer is trained. It's a select few police officers that are community policing police officers, but what we want to do is promote a culture where every officer is a community policing police officer. And what we could do is, because community policing, I don't have the exact recommendations that I wanted to get as of yet, but we can say that we want to revert back to traditional community policing, which is really that, making sure that every officer has that approach into working with people. And then under that, we can include these like subtopics, like working with undocumented families and working with the LGBT community. If you guys have any other things that maybe we could incorporate under community policing, let me know what you think.
I know I asked about it when I visited the police station. You know, they have the 6 who are being trained, who are new. And then, you know, the rest that I kind of brought, they were kind of like, well, you know, we have to be in cars, we can't be on the street, but maybe there could be some of both, you know, so that you don't interact with people if you're in a car. And I understand being in a car has certain advantages from their point. Not everyone can be walking the beat, but all of them could do some of that.
But see, that's the thing though, community policing is not just being on feet or being on a bike. It's about being from the community, which we know, okay, maybe not all the officers will be, but a lot are. But then just the way that you're getting to know people, like building relationships, you know, mentorship, getting to know store owners, like it's really more than just your way of transportation. And that's kind of what I don't like about it is like, oh, well, yeah, we have these 6 officers that walk around like, okay, that's cool, but it's a whole culture that we really want to transform.
Right. And for them to understand that culture, relate to that culture, and it's almost like a first name basis there, you know? To me, that was traditional community, you know, policing. You knew your officers.
Yep.
They could walk into the store and say, hi, so-and-so, how's it going today?
That's right.
Or what happened, so-and-so, talk to me. You know, they have good relationship management. They can de-escalate. That's what community policing does. It puts you in a powerful position of knowing and being respected so that when that community officer speaks, people listen. Right? It's trust. And you know, the officers are going to have to build that traditional trust that was once there.
Okay. So we can get, we'll have to probably get a little bit of information on our recommendations for working with undocumented families and LGBT community. We can get that. We definitely know that we have the loft as one of our primary.
Hispano could probably help with undocumented.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And one of their members is on our committee, right?
Yep.
That's why I mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll make sure we can add to that a little bit more. Let's see. Training it so much.
I actually think there's so much good stuff here already.
Yeah, I feel like we have some good recommendations.
Funding the
I feel like it's some good nuggets here, and some of the things I really think that could, if they focus on implementation, could really be very, very successful.
Do you think we had a topic that I'm wondering if you guys feel like fits under community policing, and it has to do with the crisis calls being handled at the starting at the 911 call. So what a lot of places are trying, a lot of different like states and counties are trying, is like having professionals that are trained beyond measure of like a 911 call responder to handle 911 calls, instead of having it be like the traditional they go through like a dispatch call training, I think in upstate New York, to do it. Now, one thing that White Plains is doing is they do have civilians that are employed to take on the 911 calls. And I think that that's nice because it gives it a diversity of who's accepting the 911 calls, but what's their training?
Mm. Right, like for conflict resolution, they were saying, well, it seems like police get stuck on protocol. It's like, I have to do this, you know, even if it's going to escalate. And I think something, or we can't, like they didn't talk to the woman who may or may not have thrown the brick, you know, but if they had talked to her, like if you talked before, like, well, can we resolve this dispute between neighbors? Can we let your neighbor know it was you, or do you want us not to? You know, that's something that's information you could get in the call. But you'd have to be trained to be a little bit more, like, are you open to that, as opposed to, do you just want us to go there and give the person a violation, you know? I don't think people even know when they call the police on somebody that really what they're initiating potentially legal action. They just want the noise to stop or whatever it is.
So it's a tough one for me to formulate all the words for it, but we kind of are looking to recommend something like a crisis call communications floor or a crisis call diversion center where trained professionals assist in managing 911 calls to diminish the actual physical responses from the PD patrol units. So this would, you know, in hopes be ways to divert police interactions with civilians where maybe it's need not be. I'm not sure how you guys feel.
Or some of the, or a lot of the medical calls and mental health calls where there's no violence, there's no criminality. You know, do we want police on those calls?
And I think that's what I mean. I think that's what I mean when there's not, like, are you?
The police are there first and you're having a heart attack and they can do CPR, but, you know, do you want them always? Like if someone needs to be hospitalized because they're having a mental break, maybe you'd rather a medical professional who's actually been trained more than like a little course, but that's their training, you know? I don't know. But yeah, diverting these calls that aren't really policing.
Right.
Like my husband called an ambulance and the police insisted on coming up, you know. But where
They do that with DV calls too.
you know, I mean, you know, in domestic abuse reasons to check, you know. Like,
I mean, I'm wondering if that's just, if it's standard.
my impression that it was.
What's that called? Kim, you might know what I'm trying to say right now. Like you're promoting a culture to utilize alternatives in circumstances that it doesn't need police force. It doesn't need an armed person to come, like a militarized approach.
Excessive?
No,
Yeah.
it's a person that's not negotiator.
That's,
like Sam Jackson.
There you go.
Not like him, but you know, the negotiator.
I mean, we could bring in the equalizer too, but I don't think they want that.
Yeah, but it's someone who's like a negotiator, but they're trained. Is that what you mean, Patrick? Someone like that?
I guess I'm trying to state the extreme, right? Like police are actually equipped like military grade professionals. They have weapons, they have everything that they need to break down your door, and whatever they need to do, they'll do it. So it's like we want to promote a culture that's using all the other alternatives in circumstances that don't need this like military grade like tactile approach.
Right. Like it could be an EMS in one situation where
Yeah.
it could be in another situation, a mental health professional or a social worker or something. You know, there are probably more than one resource that could be used depending on the situation. That would be part of the, I guess, the call diversion or call training would be like, this can go to somebody else. You know, I agree. It is very heavy to have somebody armed come in your house for a non-policing, non-criminal situation.
I think I know what you're talking about because I know that there are some police departments who are using that kind of approach.
Mm-hmm.
It's very close to what Rosemary was saying about,
Well, it's
she
alternative.
used she used the word de-escalation, and I kind of get where you're going, Patrick.
Yeah, I could work on the wording, but it's around that.
Public safety is one word, but you know,
Yeah, 'cause we want public safety. We don't need
this isn't really a public safety thing, though. That's the thing. They're being called in because they're the number of people have, but
alternatives, all other, and essentially we want non-violent alternatives.
that's a good word.
Non-violent alternatives. All right.
Or non-armed, yeah.
So the Dallas Police Department has this thing called Right Care,
Mhm.
and it's a police officer, clinical social worker, paramedic, and clinicians, and they're part of a team. Is that kind of what you're thinking of, Patrick?
Yes, yeah, and
Okay.
anything like that we could utilize, and I feel like that's why like we start with the 911 call, right? So it's like at the 911 call, we can really start to divert the chances of civilians having interaction with police if they don't. So okay, nice, yeah. I'm gonna screenshot this chat so I could access it later.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll send you the link. I'll pull up one of our recent emails and just send you that link. Just give me a second.
Yeah, I might actually be able to copy and paste it too if I get moving and grooving here.
Well, you know what? If you click on it, it'll open up in a different window. A lot of times, because it's Zoom, it'll open up in Bing, not Chrome.
Gotcha. What was the other YouTube video that you sent?
That was about Sherry Maples. Sherry Maples was a former police officer who became a Buddhist practitioner, and she brought a lot of what she was learning in mindfulness. She brought that back to the police department where she was a police officer. And so it's a link to just a YouTube video, but she also, I'm going to put her Wikipedia page in there also, so you can get a little more, learn a little bit more about her.
Okay, cool. Sherry Maples. All right, so
And it's CHERI Maples.
Gotcha. I'm never sure. Awesome.
Oh gosh, I didn't even. Oh, So I'm reading her Wikipedia, and she died in a motorcycle crash. I did not even know that.
There's some Buddhists they were working with here with the police for the purpose of sort of stopping that sort of intense adrenaline rush they get in a situation.
Well, Harry, I was bringing Sherry Maples into the conversation because she was a former police officer.
Right.
So she was able to speak their language, and relate. I wonder, I don't know if there's a program that she had developed or something, but no matter who it is, I think that's something that for some people just might work.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. I'll definitely check it out. She sounds very interesting. I'd love to learn more about it. So I think we still have some work to do on equipment. Like I've said a couple times, it's not my expertise per se, but I do want to get some advice from some other community advocates, like from Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, that can give us some good advice. I don't know, Harriet, how much I scanned you guys this document too. It's the one that has like the equipment inventory.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's really not a huge amount of leeway into where I feel like we can give recommendations to what they have already. I think a lot of my focus that I've been like learning is going to be on what they do in the future and utilizing more methods that are non-violent than these violent methods. So they seem to show that they want to like explore and try some things, like they purchased a couple of these tools that essentially, like when you shoot, it's like a taser, but when you shoot it at the suspect, I guess you could say, it like wraps around them, Ebola wrap. It wraps around their arms, but the way they discuss it is that, yeah, it's like safer, like it doesn't harm the person, but it's less effective. They feel like if the person has something like a weapon in their hand and you shoot this weapon at them and it only wraps around one arm and it's the arm that doesn't have the weapon in it, they still have their weapon and they're still able to, use it and wield it for danger. So, they've talked to us a couple times about these new things that they're using. They're definitely using cameras a lot more to their benefit to try to take safer measures, whether it's like entering into, like breaching a door, opening a door.
Oh yeah, that thing that they have, oof, to knock the door down, that like ram thing.
Yeah. So they still have all that stuff. The
Yeah.
American unit, like they still have all that kind of stuff. I went and examined the truck with them and they showed me everything they have, and they talk at length about how they have the long range and like the weapons to the rifles and the shotguns that are lethal weapons. They have those mainly for instances of, like, if there was an active shooter out of school, or those really scary situations, but they also still keep those in patrol cars as well. So that's like, it's something that I've been thinking as far as like equipment. Maybe some of our recommendations don't just have to be about the equipment itself, but like why do numerous squad cars need to have a rifle or a shotgun in it? I guess because they could be the one to be the first responder to a potential active shooter situation. So it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough category.
What about the continuum? It's how you use these weapons and in what situation you escalate from, this person does that, we're allowed to do pressure point techniques, which I think are stupid, but or joint techniques, and then we can go to taser, and, there's a continuum of where they can escalate what they're using. That's part of training in a way, how you use, or when you use something. All these, even the non-lethal, have a lot of problems. Like, a lot of people, if you have a heart condition, you can die. They're not so non-lethal, and they're not very effective on people who are really, really, well, some people don't feel a lot of pain, and some people, are if they're really whacked out on drugs, or they're very, very schizophrenic, or they won't react to a taser,
Right. Yeah, I saw a video of a man, the officers were ordering him out of his car, and I think he had a heart attack and wasn't able to move, and so they tased him more than once, and it just, yeah, he could have died in that moment, but they saw him as being non-compliant when in fact he was in crisis.
Well, that's what I'm going with mental health and disability, is these
Yeah.
people are non-compliant. And you're right, that's exactly how they see it, as just
Right.
that they're breaking a law or something by being non-compliant, but people can't always be compliant.
But then that can also heighten law enforcement's response. So it goes from a taser to a hold, right? It escalates. And so when you're thinking, to your point, Harriet, about training and how some non-lethal tactics are actually very lethal, that's, that you see that escalation, because they go from non-lethal to lethal because this person appears to be non-compliant when in fact
they're not responding to the taser. You hear that frequently in these very bad cases, that's when they're shooting.
Right. Yep.
Rather than backing off maybe and talking. They have the guns, or getting more people to, taking more time. I don't know. There's this whole disconnect that they just don't see things the way we do.
Yeah, so you're right. They have categories too. It's lethal weapons, less lethal, because they actually have on their inventory that they have less lethal shotguns. So I guess it still can hurt you, or maybe potentially could less lethal. I guess it, less, maybe it sprays as less like bullets, but and then lethal, which is like the bowler wraps and tasers, which can still be, right? Can still harm someone if they have medical conditions.
So I gotta go. It's 6:30 and I've got 2 more meetings tonight. So I'm gonna go take a screen break. And I think we're meeting again this week. Yes?
Yes, I think.
Is it us or the larger committee?
I can't remember now.
It's the larger committee, Kim, and we're
Okay.
meeting, and it's tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Okay, yeah, I've got it on my calendar. All right, so I will see you guys tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, peace.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think we still have some work to do around training. Around equipment, and
That's a hard one, Patrick, because I did look at that and I didn't know what else I could say about that or what else to think, because I did look at that document. But we'll think. I'll think.
Look at it too. Yeah.
yeah. So I'll make sure I get some more recommendations. I might not have everything by tomorrow, but we're gonna have a little bit more time before I present all this in detail. From what our subcommittee's been working on. So we can do some fine tuning to this. What do you guys think as far as like another time to touch base? I know we have the holiday week this week. We have our meeting tomorrow night, but
I would do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. The only problem I have, Patrick, is if something comes up in the schools. I just got a call about that, but I will make myself available.
Yeah, I know and we're getting word that, we might be looking at going into quarantine again soon, or, doing more like telehealth services soon, any day now. So maybe if we could try to meet the week after Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if we had something scheduled with the bigger committee that week.
No, Patrick, that's actually, it could be a good week because there's no other larger committee meeting that week.
All right. So Harriet, do you think we could do that Monday evening again around the same time, 5:30 p.m.?
Yep, that works for me.
Okay.
Yep, I will make it work.
Because this is important.
Yeah,
So,
all I need is the invite, and then I'll stick it on my calendar.
okay. So Karen, could you set that up for us?
Tell me again when you want to do it, Patrick?
Monday the 30th at 5:30 p.m.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you so much.
Do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Patrick, this is Janice. Can you hear me?
Hey Janice, yeah.
How are you? I
Good.
like what you guys are doing. You're doing a great job.
Really?
I'm really pleased. I like what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if you have anything,
Stay here.
Yeah. I don't hear you, Patrick.
oh, I will be reaching out to some other people, like I said, for advice on equipment. But if you know anyone or anything to add to that, or anyone that could give us some advice on it, let us know.
Okay, got you. I thought Brian was the equipment guy in your committee.
He is. I mean, he's definitely helped me with it. I could always reach out to him individually too.
Okay, but
he's
we
just-
need more.
Yeah, he's not on it tonight. But
Okay.
I'll more, and like I think Harry mentioned it, is like it's a combination of two things. Like it's the equipment, but then it's also training around the equipment usage. So I know
Right.
we did talk about when it comes to that is the body cams.
Mhm.
That's equipment, and they talk about body cams in a lot of their trainings, but we also have been discussing maybe a potential body cam specific training. So
Okay.
there's definitely overlap in our topics, but we still got.
Yeah. Well, we knew there would be. We knew there would be. But I'm going to be talking to some people today or Wednesday, and I'll find out if there's any more people who are specifically in training and give you their contact information.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I wonder who's doing training in the county. Do you know?
Well, I reached out to Mayo Bartlett because I think I think he's involved with some of these topics. So I shot him an email. I'm waiting to hear back. I'll try to connect with him just for some general things that, because
Right.
we have been talking a lot about trying to be on the same page.
Right.
So I will reach for more advice.
Okay. Well, I'm waiting for an email back from him too. I sent him one as well.
Yeah, but we'll track him down for sure.
Okay. All right. You guys have a good evening. I'm on my way to a NAACP meeting. So see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
And keep up
See you
the
tomorrow.
good work.
Thank
Keep up the
you.
good work. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. We have a great leader. We have a great leader in
You
Patrick.
do.
Good night.
You do. I'm so pleased with him. He's awesome. I really am.
He's a good teacher. He's a good teacher.
Yes.
Take
Yes.
care.
All right. Have a good
guys.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, Patrick.
Thanks, Harriet. I'm going to email you this, okay?
Thank you, Patrick.
No problem. Have a good night, Karen.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye, Harriet.
Bye-bye. All right, we're done.